Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the anime Black Butler. And this is another case of great premise, not good execution. And I'd even go even further and say that there's a narrative breakdown that occurs in this show. Granted, I like the premise of like a demonic butler who's really good at his job, really interested in seeing the relationship between CL, who has made the contract with Sebastian to find the killer of his parents. That is not well done throughout the series at all. It is more... I'd almost say that once I was done with this anime, I had seen more filler than anything I'd really seen before. And that's because everything very loosely and the barest sense connects to what the overarching goal is of to find the killers. Which we find out is only one. But we only find out because I feel like the people are like, we have to have a plot in this show. Here's the killer. It's this angel that wants to purify the world. Also, it could switch between male and female. Because reasons. That's a big thing. It's like, I don't mind that it can switch between male and female. It's just there's almost really no plot point for it. There's a lot of things that are going on through this series in that it's trying to juggle supernatural, detective, and like the mundane high life of nobles in Victorian England. And it just kind of fails. I kind of wish it was either just a really good butler, high Victorian life, hijinks would ensue and all that kind of stuff. The characters that were set up would have been great for that. I really feel that the detective series portion of this series was not fleshed out well enough. I mean, we get Jack the Ripper, spooky kind of stuff, ghosts in places, but they don't connect to any true overarching concept other than CL's trying to find the people that killed his parents. And for showing the detective elements and showing Sebastian going out and doing these things, they just find it happenstance that this angel's controlling Queen Victoria of England to wipe the world clean. And it's just like, huh? It's thrown in to have just an antagonist for the sake of having an antagonist. I almost would have just liked it if it had the supernatural element of like Sebastian as the butler screwing around with people and him being kind of technically flip-flopping between a protagonist-antagonist situation, kind of showing the flaws of CL making this kind of deal. But even that, at the end, when Sebastian supposedly is consuming CL's soul, it's like, what? Okay, fine, because I read like further on about like the other two seasons, which divulged into my opinion kind of fanfic territory more so than actual plot development, because I don't think there's truly a plot to this. I mean, yes, there are events that are connected together, but it's not constructed in any way that you can truly think follows a logical course of action. Things just happen because the person wants the plot to demand it and not have it happen more than often than not. Because of making the contract with like CL and Sebastian really doesn't do much to try and like get CL to do anything. Or to even find the killer so that way he can consume his soul. There's waiting to savor a meal and then absolutely doing nothing to achieve the meal. And that's kind of what happens here, is that he almost really doesn't do anything. It's really kind of disheartening because the premise was like, oh, this would be pretty cool. And I've got no problems with like mundane high life kind of hijinks and all that. That would have been alright. I've got a problem when you're juggling 3 different types of things at once, failing at that, and trying to stitch together a narrative out of essentially filler. And then being like, oh, we've got this at the end. Here's the villain and all that stuff. It's like, that came out of nowhere. And we don't know what's going on. We don't get any emotional, truly payoff, except for like some of the side characters at the end. And it's like, I got to the end and I'm like, well, that was disappointing. I'm glad I watched it to say that I don't need to watch it again. Because there's just better anime out there. I hate kind of like getting into that point, but there's better things to be watching. And I'm glad I sought to figure out things that I like in anime, like tone that's consistent overall, meaning that like humor and everything kind of fit together. That plot has a structure and makes sense, which this one does not. And also juggling the different disparate elements to make sure that they work together, which this one does not. So I would not really recommend watching this anime at all, especially going like first season on outward, because what I read, it was just like, no, you've taken the plot and made it into what you want. I know that you would think that's what writers are supposed to do, but they're supposed to organically do stuff, so that way you don't see that, you just did this because you want this to occur, not because it occurs naturally with what's going on with the characters. This was just like, I wanted to do a detective thing, and then you do see the detective stuff, and they barely do detective work, to be honest. And then, of course, the overarching plot of trying to find the killer, it just happens out of nowhere. It's like, that's a disservice to you and the people watching it. Because if we're doing a detective thing, we're trying to figure it out too. And you have to be able to put it into ways that we have to keep guessing, and then once we get to that big reveal, we're supposed to be like, I can't believe we didn't figure that out. Then you watch the series all over again, catching up on little clues and everything. That doesn't happen in this. You can see that it was just like, okay, here we go. Here's what we want. This is the conclusion we want, even though it doesn't make sense because we've just been doing odd little cases everywhere. And it's just really disappointing. But I'm glad I watched it so that way I can find better anime out there. So, those are my opinions on Black Butler. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.